Hello and welcome to The Natural View. I'm Maggie Jaqua, editor of WholeFoods magazine, and I'm here with my co-host Todd Pauli of 24 Stories.
Hey,
Hi, welcome. And our special guest today is Elzaphan Hotam. He is the VP of Global Marketing and CEO of NextFerm USA. Welcome, Els. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Maggie and Todd. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be your guest.
Great to have you here. So today we're going to be talking to you about Astaxanthin gummies, and the active ingredients are astaxanthin and vitamin C. And I just want to point out before we start our talk today that, as always, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. This is not intended to be considered medical advice. Anyone seeking medical advice should consult their healthcare provider. So that said, I want to talk about some of the studied benefits of supplementing with these two antioxidants. Can you tell us a little bit about astaxanthin first?
Sure, I'll do my best. But before getting into the some of the clinical or trials that have been done, or the studies that have been done, I want to add something like the overarching concept. Why is it important to have astaxanthin and vitamin C in the first place? So the overarching idea is a keyword, oxidative stress, right? That is related to inflammation and healthy immune system, but the word is oxidative stress. And basically, oxidative stress is a normal part of our daily functions. And you can call it like a trigger effect that cause our immune systems and other cellular functions call for action. The main problem or concern when discussing this natural and healthy part of our healthy body functions is when this process goes out of control. And it can happen quite easily in everyday life, such as intense workout, when you have an injury, when we have flu, or for age or pollution or stress. All these parts that are related to our unfortunate present events, or just a normal progression of aging, could cause that process of oxidative stress going out of control. And this comes a problem, as it can severely impact our ability to recover from such events, or to protect against the onset of inflammation, as mentioned, or even chronic disease. So thinking about mitigating or balancing or attenuating the process of oxidative stress, one should consider vitamins, minerals, and other ingredients that have antioxidative properties. When thinking about this, two antioxidants quickly emerge as winners, at least in our opinion. One is vitamin C, right? Vitamin C is maybe the first vitamin ever discovered, is kind of an omnipotent antioxidant with very broad effect. It was shown in numerous clinical studies through generations now that it has a very strong antioxidative effect as such, and even in case of inflammation caused by disease or pathogens. The second one is astaxanthin. So astaxanthin is a very long and hard word to pronounce. Basically, it's a carotenoid. It's a red pigment that we are familiar with when we are eating members of this family that have red, like in carrots or tomatoes. And this is what gives shrimp and salmon their natural red color. This is astaxanthin. So it's a red pigment, but also part of this larger family of carotenoids, antioxidants with broad antioxidative effect. Astaxanthin per se is considered the most potent carotenoid there is, and also has two distinctive qualities that sets it apart from all other carotenoids. The first one is its ability to integrate into cells membranes. So it has a very unique shape. It's like a rod with two heads. So one head basically affects the inner cell functions, and the other head, the external environment of the cell. So it's a kind of a dual protection, and the rod in between is basically what anchors into the membranes of the cell. The second important function of astaxanthin is its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. So actually it serves also as a neuroprotector through the same mechanism of action. And in that context, also immune cells that are so sensitive to oxidative stress and oxidation are actually benefiting from that quality, from that property of astaxanthin. So astaxanthin has been researched extensively for that purpose over long time, over multiple organs and indications, and again, it has this ubiquitous antioxidative effect. Recently, and in line with what we're doing, there's some emerging science, again, showing some promise in the ability of astaxanthin specifically, and in combination with vitamin C, to better attenuate the immune response. So in few words, we want the immune system to be tight and ready, but not over reacting, right? So astaxanthin and vitamin C do exactly that. They are optimizing our immune system to better respond once there is a pathogen attack, and then quickly release as soon as that attack is over, so that we are not experiencing this self-destruction mechanism so familiar with present COVID-19 kind of disease. I would add to that a specific initial studies that we have done with our company on our astaxanthin, and of course we will go a bit deeper in this through this presentation, and that is where we have seen again the ability of our astaxanthin and astaxanthin in general to absorb well into our plasma and act as a strong antioxidative agent against oxidation. And this is, of course, the most important attribute of astaxanthin, since from that oxidative protection stems a lot of benefits across organs and indications.
Yes, so many benefits, and especially as you were talking about the immune right now being foremost for so many of us as we're dealing with this pandemic. We want to make sure that our defenses are strong. So you talked about the combination of vitamin C and astaxanthin really powering that up. And could you talk a little bit about the fermented astaxanthin and how that's playing a role in also helping with the absorption? Could you explain that technology to us?
Sure. So the story behind the Astafirm in that context is quite unique. There are, generally speaking, there are three microorganisms that can express astaxanthin naturally as a means for self-preservation. Again, in nature, as in human life, there are powerful oxidants or stressors. That could be UV light, that could be cold temperature, things like this, harsh climate, and so on. And they've been identified three major microorganisms that perform that natural task of naturally producing astaxanthin that way. Algae is one, we are very familiar with that source. Bacteria is second, and a yeast strain called Paphia rhodosima is a third species. Now, yeast is a very interesting microorganism. It's quite high in the evolutionary scale. and, and is capable of propagating naturally simply by utilizing sugar and other nutrients from the environment in order to propagate, grow, and multiply. We basically use that natural property of yeast, as any yeast, for that same purpose. So it's actually a cousin to what we recognize as baker's yeast, right? Or the yeast that is used for alcohol fermentation and so on. These are all cousins related to the same branch of microorganism. So we at NextFerm simply used that natural quality of that specific strain of yeast to grow and produce astaxanthin. We then harvest that astaxanthin and basically formulate it. What makes it then special is a couple of its unique traits. So it's indeed a fermentation process, and literally what fermentation means is when yeast utilize sugar and other basic nutrients, and through a natural, its own natural biochemistry, basically process whatever desired nutrient you can think, where there is no genetic manipulation in that approach whatsoever. So besides being fermented, of course, the natural form of astaxanthin, which comes from yeast fermentation, is very close to what actually circulates in our body. It's very similar. It's easily recognized by the body. Another aspect of the technology, and this is from downstream processing that we own and we developed through the years, is that product basically comes with no flavor or odor at high potency. And this is extremely important because many of the applications that you would like to use astaxanthin, you simply can't. Because when you're using other sources, as in the case of algae, for example, it comes usually with very strong flavor and odor, which makes it inadequate or impractical to implement into, let's call it, tasteful application. And gummy is one of them. There are others as well. So I would say, to summarize, it's a natural process we are basically exploiting, which leads to a special form of astaxanthin that is readily recognized by the body and is effective, and that is easy to apply across as many food or supplement application you can think about in a very easy and effective way.
So along those lines, actually, we're recording this as we're wrapping up 2020, and you've hit on two big trends that we're seeing in a lot of 2021 forecasts, and those are, gummies as a method that people do desire, and immune, obviously, going to continue to be a huge in-demand category as we head into 2020. And the other thing that has actually topped some trend watchers' forecast list is sustainability, and I know that plays a role here too with what you're doing. So can you talk to us about that?
Thank you for a question. I think this is very important and item, obviously, but also one of the places our technology really shine. So go back to the concept of fermentation. Of course, fermentation has been with us humans as long as the civilization exists. Right? We use fermentation for, I mentioned, bread or beer since the time of the pharaohs in Egypt. But basically, it represents the most advanced and sustainable production methodology ever. And why is that? It's because basically what it requires is the minimal amount of water, land, electricity, that you can possibly think about. Everything is done in closed, controlled vessels in relatively small space. There is minimal to zero impact to or from the environment in this way. There is ultimate batch-to-batch consistency. So there is a lot of advantages when comparing even to, let's call it, conventional plant synthetic-based technologies. Just when we're thinking about the use of plants and how it's a better alternative, for example, for animal sources, you know, in proteins and such. But even if we're considering those large-scale industries, we are immediately thinking about using of land that was previously maybe a forest, or how to grow it without using pesticides, and so on and so forth. So here we have a technology that basically lends itself for a very controlled, minimal environmental impact kind of an approach. So this is highly sustainable on every aspect possible.
I think, you know, we're talking about some new technology here, some innovation, and obviously there's education that is still going on within the industry, as well as the consumer. So, and I know you have a lot on your website that can help, but maybe you could talk about, I think one of the main things is a concern about, you know, synthetic technology and biotech coming into the natural products. So can you talk to us about how this process differs from synthetic astaxanthin?
Sure. Absolutely, and frankly, I'm being asked a lot about this, and this is quite, for us, it's an easy answer, but maybe we can use that opportunity to expand a little bit. So, usually talking about synthetic, the term refers normally to a chemical reaction. A company uses chemical reagents, and through multiple stages of chemical reaction, achieve a certain molecule which is purified. Contrary to that, there are use of a biological system, whereas we don't chemically synthesize, we harness the power of single cells usually to express a desired molecule. Usually these are more complex molecules which are used. Now, in that space, there are two approaches. One is to basically implant a gene sequence or modify a gene sequence inside the DNA of this biological entity, this cell, this microorganism, so that instead of producing a material X, it could produce, you know, a hyphen X, some kind of a modification or a completely different biological entity that has a merit. It could be a drug, it could be a dietary supplement, but that's a quite let's call it a solid and well-used technology. In our industry, usually it applies to what we call GMO, genetically modified organisms. And again, this is a general scheme. Contrary to that approach is our technique. We do not apply any genetic manipulation whatsoever. It's actually we use or we leverage the natural tendency of the yeast to produce naturally astaxanthin. And what we do, we basically pick the best offspring. So think about horse breeding, dog breeding, things like this, where basically with each generation, one picks the best offspring, which expresses the best quality or the best desired property. You know, if it's a horse, maybe it should run the fastest, or if it's a dog, maybe the longest hair or whatever. So in our case, through successive generation, basically we breed and select offsprings which express the highest ability to express, in our case, astaxanthin, which makes it commercially available. But we do not manipulate the genetic intake or the genetic code of those strains. So we are what is called 100% pure, kosher, non-GMO technology, and it's not synthetic, it's naturally occurring. So that's kind of where we are.
Excellent. I know for people who want to learn more about some of the science and technology that you discussed, there's more information on your website. I know there's a great webinar on there that one of your scientists goes into kind of a deeper dive on this. So anybody looking for more, you can check that out on nextferm.com, and we'll have that information up with the article that accompanies this, so you can get that website too. So
thank you.
Let's dive in a little bit and talk about the use of pectin, right? Because in terms of your gummy application, can you go through the use of that and a little bit about the benefits of using pectin in your
Sure. Sure. So of course, we come from the world of raw materials. We developed the Astaxanthin, the technology, and we will continue to develop the technology itself to optimize it, the science behind it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, we have partnered with quite a distinctable gummy manufacturer that specialize in that particular niche or in that particular category of gummy making, which are pectin-based. So to make kind of a long story short, there are two basic popular approaches for making gummy mattresses today in the United States. The first one is gelatin-based, and gelatin is usually an animal-derived extract that have that, we are all familiar with gelatin, that have that distinctive semi-solid kind of texture to it, that it easily chewable and easily swallowable. So it's a very human-friendly type of organic material that is very common across multiple dietary supplement applications. Gum is one, and even soft gels, of course. I think it's the most dominant source of raw material for that industry as well. An alternative to that is pectin. Pectin is a vegetable-based or plant-based organic material that exhibits similar texture, that can deliver similar sensory and mouthfeel effect. So it's very pleasant, but it's completely vegan, naturally occurring, non-GMO, vegan-friendly type of a material that uses a base for producing gummies. You can find several manufacturers here in the United States that are doing the same. Our material easily complies with either of these matrices, but when we develop this product or the gummy application, we immediately picked up, obviously, the pectin, since it is very it's very harmonized, so to speak, with the story of sustainability, of being plant-based, of being vegan-friendly, a natural and healthy kind of a story, both with the astaxanthin and its source and the end application.
Yeah, I think it's great that it just, if you're looking to formulate, right, it increases the accessibility for any type of customer. You're just reaching that broader audience.
All right, well, along those lines, is there anything else you want to add, anything next on the horizon, or any final takeaways you want to leave us with before we part?
Absolutely. So obviously, besides those gummies that we offer also the bulk raw material for those brands or contract manufacturers that wish to set their own path, so to speak, and develop their own unique and distinctive profile. That specific formulation we've developed simply lends itself to those who wish to have a more control of the amounts they initially buy. They want to buy smaller quantities, test the waters, have that immediate experience and quick experience. That kind of approach lends itself. In the horizon, our company will continue to develop the astaxanthin science. So we intend, of course, I cannot disclose, but we intend to do additional research for our astaxanthin in its specific and unique role, distinctive role on human health. And probably we will branch out to potentially new formulations that has potential benefits beside the vitamin C and astaxanthin, immunity, antioxidation, and so on. Probably this we will work on during 2021. We'll continue to develop these branches, and maybe we will have an opportunity to talk about new products that we develop along the same philosophy and vision. We intend to roll out a very powerful protein, basically, that has the potential to address most of the shortfalls of plant proteins, namely nutrition and flavor.
That's great. What a tease. So we can't wait to hear about that when it
More to come.
We want the scoop, so keep us posted.
Yeah, absolutely. One quick question in terms of if folks watch this and they want to learn more, can you, Els, tell us where we can find more information? And then also, can you touch a little bit on, I know you guys, in terms of pioneering some of this research and technology and ingredient science, if someone comes and they have questions, I assume that you partner closely with folks who may be wanting to come up with a new formulation, a new gummy that includes, additional ingredients. And I bet, I'm guessing you work closely with them to help them achieve that. Can you talk a little bit about how you partner with customers and then where people can find more information?
Sure. The easiest way is basically to Google or to click www.nextferm.com, and you can learn more about our company and specifically go to the page that talks about and displays Astaxanthin, the Astaxanthin that we are producing. Myself and my colleagues have been around for almost 20 years in the industry. We ran a previous company that works in the similar space of novel active ingredients that are developed and produced called Elzaphan back in the days. And so we do have some background about the industry, the needs, and we're trying to do our best to serve those needs. So absolutely, we are happy, and we see this as part of our responsibility to educate, to guide, to give our best advice, whatever the application is, whatever the indication is, as long as it comes along with Astaxanthin, we can certainly contribute. And people can contact me directly, phone call or email. I'm happy to answer. Sometimes I send them to other suppliers if I can't help them. That's not a problem, and that's part of our service.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for filling us in, and thank you for keeping us posted in the future in advance. We look forward to hear what's next. And Todd, Els, thank you both, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Thank you, Todd. You've been so nice to me. Thank you for all your questions.
Thanks, Els.